Hey, what's going on, Langhoff Academy? Happy Sunday. I thought I was gonna have to have the Dodge game on the side, but it's not very close. 10-1, San Diego's winning. So my Dodgers, I don't know, they're struggling. But welcome back. We got a good show today. We got three submissions. One of them I wasn't able to get to last week, so I'm glad I'm gonna get to it this week, and hopefully you are on board watching. And if you are, I'm going to pull up the comments here and try and keep up with these comments. So let's get started. First one. This is a submission that I actually reached out to and asked if I can use this because this is a common problem I do see is contact issues, heaviness, call them fat shots, call them what you will, but they're not fun to be around. And we can see the contact issues happening here. Now, when I'm working with students that have contact issues, what I'm looking at, oh, hold on, I lost this. Give me a sec. There we go. Okay, we're back. What I'm looking for is how steep they are. What is their footwork like? Do they have centeredness issues? Do they lose posture? And we can see right off the bat, I believe the student is fairly new to the game. I believe they've only been playing for a year or so. So it's good. We caught them in time. Now, if this was a student that came to me that's been playing for 15, 20 years, it's going to be a bit of a challenge to try and fix things just because the feel and real is tough to distinguish between the two. So it's good that you're brand new to this game, or anybody within 2 years to me is still brand new, even though it sounds a little bit crazy. But for me, it takes about 5 to 7 years to really get a swing down packed in your neurological system. So right off the bat, you can see that there is a little bit of spacing issues. We kind of collapse into the golf ball, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a collapsing issue impact. One sec. All right. Sorry about that. One thing that we can, so let's start from the beginning. So we're talking about spacing issues. So what we're going to look at is, let's see the setup, because if you don't give yourself enough space for the setup, you are going to run into issues at impact. So we can see already, let's zoom in here so we can get into this. You can see here, so it's very congested, not a lot of room to work with. Now, some people can make this work. We're going to look at the impact position and see how much room they have at impact. And we can see when we get down to impact, you can see the spacing here. So you do a good job of spacing. However, because you've increased the spacing, in order to do that, you have to become kind of steep. Your plane has to be very steep when you're coming more outside to in. And when you come outside in and steep, you can make it work, but you are going to run into some contact issues. So realistically, I mean, your motion looks pretty athletic. If you just watch your motion back and through here, there's definitely a motion that you can use. I don't see a lot of posture loss. I just see a lot of issues with your stability, specifically with how you take that club back. Now, if we take a look at where you start the swing, if we're going to see, I'm going to draw some lines here. Let's back up a little bit. So I'm a little bit slow. We had the Dodgers really threw me off. All right, so we're going to draw some plane lines here. And we can see how this plane, it's pretty wide. Anytime you start getting a plane this wide, we might have some setup issues. We can see the back brace line, and we're going to do some Barney purple here because this is a nice color to do Barney purple on. And we got that spine angle. So now let's just take a, oh, look at that. See what the Dodgers do to me. Golly. We got to redraw that. All right. Hit the wrong button. All right. Plane lines. Get those going again. Upper plane line. Get those going again. Back brace line. Okay. Don't Dodger out on me and hit the wrong button. Okay. So we go from the arches of the heels straight up to the sky. And what we can see is we have definitely a triangle developing here. Now, the problem with that triangle is you can make it work by standing up. But because he actually maintains his posture pretty well, his hands now have to move up and away from his body. And that's where his steepness is coming in. So if you can get the center of your arches of your heels back underneath where those two little lines meet. So in order to do that, we'd definitely have to straighten up your knees and pull your feet back. So you at least have some initial spacing here. So if we do this in green, let's take a look and imagine what it would look like. So that would be the arches of the heels. Your feet would probably just be about here, right? And a little bit straighter knees. Now we can imagine that your spacing would be probably there. We'd have more space to work with, right there. So that's the key, is giving you spacing, because right now your knees are going to run into your body unless you physically pull both feet back and slip back, but that's almost impossible to do. So let's take a look at his compensatory motions for this, because he does do some good compensatory motions. You can see that the body wants to turn out the way, but because there's no initial spacing for his hands to pull back on that lower plane line, this is where the lift happens. So we see the hands move up and away and out. The club face, it starts to open up slightly. It's not that bad though. We see there's a club face relative to the spine angle. So it's not a club face issue. It's definitely a steepness issue. So we get that secondary plane line met a little bit high. The good news though is you can see if we draw where the butt of the club is straight down to the sky, it is behind where his center of the swing is. However, look at where it is in relation to the center of his plane work. So the lower plane line, the spine angle line, it has met that. So it should be behind that center. So in other words, the arm should be here to accommodate that center of your swing. But right now it's at his center. So any sort of initial turn early, you're going to get those hands moving away from your body. And how we know this is, let's take a little line here and draw a triangle. We're going to see that initial action. So this is where his hands would like to go, right, forming straight down. Now let's take a look at the motions there. So you see that it's doing good. It's doing good right there. So you see how the hands move out and away a little too soon. So this is just stemming from setting up a little bit too close. As an athlete, he's trying to find that centeredness. So he does a good job. And you can see he maintains his posture. So it's not necessarily a posture issue. He's against that back brace line. He's in his spine angle line. Yes, he has to come up slightly just because he's throwing his hands out and they're going to release a little too soon. And the release too soon happens because momentum is pushing your hands out and you lose that wrist angle. Now, it's a little bit hard for me to diagnose exactly, just because we need a face-on view, and the face-on view will help us decide where that ball position is relative to your center. As he comes on through, you can see that his arms return to that secondary plane line pretty good. So all in all, I think this is a great swing. I think you can definitely do yourself some justice by, let's just take a look at let's clear all these lines. Let's check one more thing to see how much tilt you get. So there's the top tilt of 36, just past impact. And we are at 50. Okay, perfect. So you get a good amount of tilt. Everything for you is just set up. So I don't want you to go away from this and thinking, oh man, I don't have to change much my swing, because you don't really have to change much in your swing, but it's a setup change. Now, setup changes feel a little bit more awkward because you are starting from a brand new position you're not really used to. So for you, imagine that your center of your arches of your heels need to be supporting your hip joints. So right there's a sense of your hip joints. So don't change your posture. Don't change the way your arm hang is. Everything looks great. I love this position. Just get your feet more under you and straighten up slightly. Okay, so you don't want to stand super straight, but you want a little bit of straighter legs so you create that room between your hands and your thighs. Okay, so I hope that helps you. Let's see who is next. Let me move all my papers out the way. We have, all right, let's zoom in. This is a little bit too far away from us. Okay, let's watch this. Now, this student, I've got some notes down here, says, can't stop slicing. So we're going to figure out why you can't stop slicing. Okay, so when you can't stop slicing, path sometimes is left of club face. And remember, its path is relative to your target. So as if you don't really know where your path is unless you pick an aiming point. So that's why when you guys and girls are practicing, make sure you always choose a target. Even if it's a 50-yard shot all the way up to your driver, you've got to choose a target and you got to set up correctly. So if you don't use clubs for your foot line, just get some clubs down there on the ground to help you with your aiming. Make sure it's aiming correctly. That way you can truly tell, is this a pull? Is this a push? Did it move the way I'm thinking it's moving? And then you can start to diagnose the cause and effect. Now, just looking at this swing, We can definitely see a couple of alignment issues, some closed shoulders, some lower body issues, definitely some weight distribution issues, and a length of arc issue. Uh, Stability as well. I see a lot of posture loss here. So let's go back to the initial swing and let's draw our patented lines. We're going to use Barney Purple again because I just love Barney Purple and he's nice and bold today. I don't know why he's bold. Okay, so you can see the shoulders are slightly right of the target. Foot line is a little bit right. Hips are square. Knees are slightly right. So it's a little bit of compensatory issues going on there. Forearms are pretty decent. Let's draw some spine angle lines. So we're going to draw this in green. And also let's check the centeredness check. So let's pull this up. Now remember, this centeredness check, it's hard. If you don't get a good face, if you don't get a good angle of the camera, it's hard to decide because we can see the arch of the heels. We have two arches of the heels, right? We have one right on there and then this one ahead of it. So ideally, you want to try and be directly in line with where your feet are pointing. So your feet kind of disappear between each other. So the right foot will cover the left foot. Then you can truly see are you centeredness because this angle, yeah, we can see the right foot is centered, but the left is definitely ahead of it. But we split the middle. So for you, split the middle. I'm going to draw your line right about here. So actually, let's erase these. Let's draw your centeredness line here. So see the centeredness line? It's okay. It's pretty close to where those two meet. And again, this could be a camera issue. So we'll call that pretty centered. Now let's take a look at the way you take that club back. And let's draw one more here for your back brace line. There we go. Okay, so we do see a left shoulder dipping down. Look at your head motion. Your head motion, now you're definitely stuck on your toes. And so we're starting to increase our spine angle. When you increase your spine angle stuff, some strange stuff happens. But you have found a way to keep your shoulders relative to your original spine angle as opposed to your steepness. So what I mean by this is let's do this in blue. And I'm trying not to confuse everybody here. So here is your new spine angle at the top of your swing. So we see here we've increased, we've fallen down. A couple of things cause this to happen is the right leg straightens up, but look at that left leg. It's really bucking in. It's really bowing down. And this will probably decrease your hip tilt. So your hip tilt will actually start to tip the other way. So I would imagine most of your weight is centered, maybe slightly to your left foot. You don't want it to be that way with the driver. You want it to get some weight distribution right side and then stay behind the ball as you swing up. Now you've got some issues. You're going to have to kind of right the ship at some point. We'll see how you right the ship. But look at your shoulder tilt. So let's go to right about here. So there's your shoulder tilt, right? So you can see how your shoulder tilt relative to your new spine angle, you've lost shoulder tilt relative to your new spine angle. However, to your old spine angle, it's pretty close to perpendicular. So this is that compensatory motion that your body has figured out. As you dip down, your shoulders have learned to kind of lose their tilt to compensate that dipping down, to give you a fighting chance. Now, the problem is we see because you are tipping left and also turning, the length of your swing gets a little bit too long for my liking, specifically from here to here. We can see most of this is just arms. You've already established your turn. Now momentum's taking you back there and speed of your swing. So if you do have a fast backswing, you're going to struggle with momentum. So now we have some issues with too long of a swing. The club face, it's decent. You know, it's pretty square to the left forearm, so it's okay. But now you have so much to time and get back out in front of you, and you're already setting yourself up to be steep because look, with that increase of tilt, you've raised your left arm higher than it needed to be based on your setup. So now you got a predetermined tilting downswing. How are you going to learn to compensate from this? What are your adjustments going to be? So let's clear some of these lines up so we don't get too confused out here. And let's take a look at what you do. So we get stuck. We're stuck with our weight towards our toes. Now some compensations happen, but it's a little too late. And you can see how once you lose real estate, you're crashing into the golf ball, and you have to get your hands back out in front of you. There's going to be some issues. I see a path slightly left. You can see how low your hands release. So this is where your arms are releasing versus where they were at the top. So they don't quite match up. So to me, this is a path left issue. Now, if you have a path left with a square club face to the target, you're still going to start to slice that golf ball because the face is relative to the path. So This is where you just have to make sure you land out correctly. Now, in order to correct this, you can also see how much posture loss you have. So there's your back brace line as you get down into impact. So we're starting to lose posture too. So you do get back into your original spine angle. However, it's crunched. So now your elbow doesn't have enough room to clear. I would also imagine that you're falling back to counteract that tipping forward. So you might have a motion where you have this sort of weight distribution instead of more, turning around, getting that weight distribution right side to left side. If you don't know what the correct feeling should be, for an athlete, for a daily athlete, next time you go to the range, instead of warm swings, take 5 golf balls. Call 5 of the worst golf balls in this little area down here and start throwing the ball. That's going to be your practice swing. And I recommend this for most people, is just get used to throwing and throw it as hard as you can. So get that weight distribution from the right side to the left side, right side to the left side, and just throw them. Lob them nice and high, throw them as hard as you can, and try and transfer that feeling into a golf swing, because that's more the feeling you're going after. I would imagine your weight distribution's a little bit the other way. So in order for you to kind of get some instant results, let's take a look at your setup, and let's help you out get that setup under control here, because you'll be amazed. A lot of this has to do with setup. So if we draw I think this golf ball is way too far outside. I mean, look where that golf ball is, and I bet you that you might be stacking on your left side still. So it's really hard to diagnose unless you have a face on. So if you do have a face on and you by chance watching this, you're going to watch it later, send me the face on, because I need to see where your ball position is to make this suggestion. But from this point of view, obviously we have our foot line a little bit right. Everything's a little bit right of where it is, and it looks like that club is going slightly left. So we're going to have some issues there. But for you to get an immediate result for your setup, you want to try and get that posture a little bit more supported. So get these feet in line with each other. Obviously, it could be a camera issue, but you want to feel like the weight is evenly distributed between your front and your heel. Right now, it looks like it's a little bit too toe heavy, and this is what causes as well to you to dip down because you take that club back, with that left knee bracing in, and you fall forward. It does look like it might already be toe heavy. So you want to feel like it's more centered, and definitely check your ball position, because from this point of view, it does look too far forward relative to your tilting, because it doesn't look like you're tilting enough to get to that ball position. So for you to get to that ball position, you might have to stack your weight on the left side, which then causes you to get a little reverse pivot. So hope that makes sense. This is more of a cause and effect for you. I don't really have any other recommendations unless you can give me that face on, which will really help me to get you a correct setup for that ball position. So hope that helps you. But this next one, this one is a doozy, and this is Andy. So Andy, this is the one I couldn't get to last week. So hopefully you're on, Andy. If you aren't, I have no idea what any feelings should be in the swing. Yeah, I hear you, Doc. Those days I don't know feelings of anything. I've been going to therapy about my feelings. I didn't know there's golf therapy. There must be golf therapy. So Andy, if you're on, hopefully you're on. This is for you, and we're going to do double screen, because double screen is what we're after. And I believe one of these, let's do this one and this one. Okay, so I believe the one on the right is Andy's old swing, and the one on the left is his new swing. Why can't I move? Why can't I move this? Golf pros and their technology. You should be able to move it. I don't know why you can't move it. Okay, well, we just have to make do with this. So Andy on the right side, he sent me some notes here, so I'm just going to help you out with these notes. 2 videos. The one on the bucket hat is the one he preferred, so this is the one on the left side. This is his newer swing. The one on the right side is about a year ago, and in the past year, he has been chasing side bend. So we'll take a look at what that is causing versus trying to keep the arms more passive and lowering the club with your hips, more exaggerated side bend. So, okay, he's trying to get to more of a Neiman or a Thigala. In general, it feels like my body gets more open and the release feels more natural. Okay, so that's a good thing, although my release still needs a lot of work. So we'll take a look at his release pattern and see what some cause and effect is for that. Lastly, as I've been chasing more side bend, I'm struggling with the nuances of ground force. As I try to get more side bend, it feels like a lot of rotational forces. Let's play these while this is going. A lot of rotation from a more upright swing, I get turned into vertical forces. All right. That's a lot of swing thoughts you got going on there, Andy. So let's just take a look. Now, visually, Andy, if you're on here, visually, I prefer the older swing, just visually. And I'll tell you why, just because of habits, excuse me, prevention of injuries. The one on the right side is going to be less prone for injury. One on the left side, there's a lot of crunching going on here. Your weight distribution seems to be struggling more so with the left. Look at the feet. Look how the feet respond after you hit it, specifically at that left foot. The right one, even though you might feel like it's more vertical, we'll talk about why it might be more vertical, and we'll start to look at your tilting, because we'll get that right away. I want you to take a look at this, and this is for everybody at home too, because this is a huge thing. Prevention of injury is my number one goal for amateurs. We're not all tour pros out there. We don't have the bodies of the tour pro, and believe me, it's a full-time job. I mean, they have people that give them the right food to eat all the time, stretch them once or twice a day, work out once or twice a day. Their body's built for their swing, and it's obviously built for their swing. It's not like they all have the same workout regimen. It's for their swing. So I want you to keep an eye on this. So there's one shoulder tilt number, and we'll see if they're about the same. And there's another shoulder tilt number. So we see the one on the right has actually more shoulder tilt, which is a little bit strange since that's the one you think is flatter. Actually, it's more shoulder tilt. So now let's we go down to the impact, and we take a look at the one on the left side. I mean, look at that shoulder tilt well past the impact. And we have 67, so 33 degrees. We go to the one on the right, just past the impact, and we have 50, what are we going to call that? 50 degrees. So we have 12 degrees difference on the right side and 33 degrees difference on the left side. 33 to me is a little bit too much, specifically with the way you're set up. There's not much room to get that amount of tilt. So at impact, you can see how look at the right elbow is kind of just stuck on your body, not a lot of room to work with. And look how you, in order to get your hands to keep moving forward, right? There's only two things you could do with the guy on the left side. If I just take my hands here and I turn, my hands will move forward by me turning. Since you don't really have a lot of room to turn, or else you start shanking the ball, you have to tilt to get your hands to move forward while your body's trying to turn as well. So the increase of tilt is not necessarily because you have to increase tilt to get some power and swing from the inside. It's because you have to get your hands to move forward to help strike the golf ball. But you can still see your hands are relied upon a little too much, because look at that impact on the left side. You see this, it's not really a release. It's almost like you just kind of square that club face as best you can while you're tilting. And this excess tilt is putting a huge amount of pressure on that lower lumbar region. And just as we learned last week, that lower lumbar region isn't responsible for turning. It's responsible for supporting, to absorb the forces from you, kind of going up and down to like pick berries. If you're picking berries, it's the lumbar region that's supporting the action of you going up and down. So the rotational area that the lower back can really achieve is maybe 30 degrees in total, 15 back, 15 through. The thoracic can get 60 degrees, so 30 back, 30 through. So you don't want to have a swing where you have to turn and tilt so much, because the tilting action is going to compress your spine. The turning action is not putting so much pressure on that lower body that it has to turn to absorb the pressure, and that's where slip disc happen. You start popping stuff. And believe me, take it from somebody who has lower right back issues, and most of the right-handed players that have a kind of a homemade swing, that find a way to become a pretty decent player, have lower back problems just because they're not clearing the room enough. So let's start from the beginning. Let's make sure we try and get you set up correctly, because I know this is probably not what you want to hear, Andy, but I prefer the guy on the right. Just to swing, it looks a little bit more easier to work with on a day in to day out basis. Doesn't look so hunchy as the guy on the left. And we'll talk about why. So let's get Barney Purple once again. And we're going to draw some spine angle lines. And we usually take it through the ears, but since you're kind of hunching your neck over, we're going to try and do this as best as we can. Good. And yeah, you can see a little difference there. So we already have a lot more forward. So I know what you're talking about. You feel like it's more over, and the one on the right side is more upright. Let's go now. Let's do some reds, and we do that for the lower plane line and the upper plane line. So again, we have a big area. This might be a little too big there, Andy. I want to tighten that up a little bit. The one on the right side, okay, so this one's tighter. So this looks better. It just looks like this. It's a tighter area to work with. Back brace line to see any motions. And we'll also take a look at the centeredness check. We're going to do that with yellow. So we see this one is sitting behind the heels, where this one is right on. Look at that. You know, it just looks more athletic, the one on the right, okay? Because the one on the left, I mean, you can make the one on the left work if you stand a little taller so you don't put a lot of stress on maintaining that tilt. And you pull your feet back so it does support where your centeredness is, kind of where the hip joint is. But the one on the right side, even though you feel like it's not productive, it can be a little bit easier to repeat just because there's less pressure on you. But let's take a look at the overall motion. We can see the one. Let's sync these up. Let me see, how are they synced up? All right, let's do a quick little syncing. And this takes a little bit of time, so have some patience with me. I go right to impact. We go 1 frame after impact. And this is 1 frame after impact. Perfect. And let's sync them up to impact. Okay, and let's back it up. All right, so now they're synced. Okay, we take that club back. We see this one on the right side. Okay, we do see definitely the club is a little bit higher than the plane line, which is okay. I've seen some decent players do that. Club face is obviously going to open up more just because it's a taller motion. One on the left side, we see you do a really good job. However, look at that. So here it's slightly shut of the spine angle, and you do a much better job of keeping the hands on that lower plane line. So I see why visually you're like, okay, this looks a little bit better because you're engaging your turn and your tilt. Your tilt is more relative to your spine angle, and your hands are pulling inside, which is good. So you probably get to that secondary plane line much better. So this is phenomenal, right? And this is probably what you're seeing, that you're saying, all right, I'm getting it. But we start to look at the sacrifices of how you're getting it. Obviously, we see a little bit more turn with the lower body. The one on the right side, we don't get as much turn with the lower body. So I think that's where you're going to find most of these issues that you had before with this guy on the right side, is you just didn't enact the lower body to turn to allow the hands to stay lower, because you do a good job of getting your tilt on both of these. You know, look at that tilt. It's perpendicular to your pink line. And look at this tilt. It's also perpendicular. So you do a good job of your tilting. I just don't think you turn enough to get your hands to go low initially. The lack of the turn, you start to just pick the club up. So I think that's where I would start off first, and go back to this guy, the guy on the right side. I know it's not what you want to hear, but some great things is look at where you are on the new swing on the left side, where the old swing, you're a little bit more up and away. But remember, why did you get that? It's not necessarily because your setup was better. I think this old setup on the right side is better. I just think you initiate the turn on the left side better with your hips. So if you take the initiation of the new swing with the setup of the old guy, now I think you're cooking. Now I think you're getting the best of both worlds, where we have a setup that promotes asynchronous, like you have here, where that centeredness line runs through your spine angle and your lower plane line. And you're also protecting your lower back, which is the number one goal for me, is to protect my students so they can play this game a little longer. Now, the one on the right side, in order for you to have any fighting chance, you're going to have to learn to reroute it somehow, right? So you're going to have some sort of drop. It's either I've seen people do it 2 ways. I've either seen them, time that hand to drop back down or adjust their whole body. So we'll see some students get some exaggerated tilting back and fall down. Now, obviously, the second one is more extreme. It doesn't happen as much. I would say most of us will have some sort of rerouting with our hands. So let's take a look at what happens there. So we do see the hands reroute. It's the same rerouting as the guy on the left. And you can see both bodies are also dipping down. So you can see it's the same thing. It's just different positions. As we come through now the one on the right side, it's a little too late. You can see it's steep. And when you have a steep motion, it's really tough to strike a golf ball with consistent power. And your hands will start to get away from your body. And that's when your hands start to release too soon. And it's a little bit challenging. Here, at least you're in the slot, right? So we're in between the two slots. You can see the club. It's beautiful, right? So I see why you would think the one on the left side, you're making good gains, right? But it comes at a cost of what you're trying to do, because now at a point, your hands are going to have to get up. They're going to have to start to raise up to create some room. And what might occur now is now that club falls below the plane. So now it's below that plane. And anytime it's below the plane with an iron, you're running into some trouble, because when it's below the plane, Peace and greetings to the chat. What's up, Eric? Glad you're here. When you're running below that plane with an iron, you're going to run into some issues because you're going to hit that ground a little too soon. So now your body's going to compensate, and you might have to exaggerate the tilt. You might have to learn how to chicken wing. And you mentioned in your notes that you have some chicken wing issues, but also your hands will have to fight that, and they might have to throw the club out some way to get it above plane. So at least the one on the right side, you don't have that issue because it's steeper, right? So hopefully you can see that just because something is quote unquote doesn't look good doesn't necessarily mean you should change it just for the sake of changing it. Because if you look at the guy, let's clear these lines up so we can see this. If you look at the one on the left, it's the lower body is running into the upper body and you're running out of room. At least the one on the right side, we have some daylight here. You can see the daylight between the forearms and the body. So I know this is the old swing, and I know why you changed what you wanted to change. And it makes sense visually, but you're also sacrificing some really good positions that you had on the old swing. And specifically here, I mean, look at how quiet your hands are. You're not throwing, and you can see the club. It gets out a little bit lower on the left side, obviously because it's steeper. But what's the one thing that I'm helping you look at is also look at this amount of tilt you have going on versus the older one. There's going to be much less pressure here. And we can see that this one, look how your lower body has to kind of do this like unnecessary firing to try and sequence things back up here. With this one, you're just kind of stepping off. And we can see, look how high this right foot is. And this one's just kind of stepping off. So there are some good things that you do. And specifically here, I mean, look at that right foot. It's rolled over. So, the hips are definitely more engaged. I get that just because of what we saw you change. But I personally like this one on the right side, the older swing. And look at the extension too. So here the arm is just extending naturally. You're standing more natural. The hands are finishing higher. You can see some spacing here. The one on the left, we're just getting too constricted. Everything's tight and stuck. So let's watch that again. And for those who are just joining, I know we just got a lot of people jump on right now. The one on the right side is the old swing that Andy had. And the one on the left is the new swing. And he was focusing on increasing side bend. And if you missed it before, go back and watch it again. The changes he made was actually really good. However, I think the changes were made to fit a look because it's actually, in my opinion, starting to do some more damage to his golf swing. So, Andy, what I recommend you do, let's get you back to here. You need to go back to some of this setup where it's more natural. But let's do this. Since we don't want to look at the newer swing, I want you to focus on the old swing. Let's go back to just one video and look at this one. Because I think you need to kind of reset yourself so you don't do damage to yourself. And let's just talk about what I would be working on from this view just to help you. Okay, let's redraw this, and we're going to keep it fairly simple. Lower plane line, upper plane line. We got the spine angle. Let's do that. And you guessed it, Barney Purple. Okay, so now we know that this is a pretty centered setup. We go from the arches of the heel up to the sky. We can see they're pretty close. And this, I couldn't have drawn it worse than that, but that's pretty good. As we take that club back, however, you can see there's not a lot of lower body turn. It's more like the hands and arms are picking up the club. So just like the newer swing that you have, I like the way that you've increased the turn with your hips, because that turn of the hips, what that does is it helps you move your hands closer to that lower plane line without you doing anything, because it's not a tilting issue. Sometimes I see people with their hands flaring out to the right side of this line is because they have good enough turn, but their shoulders lose tilt. Now, when your shoulders lose tilt, let's do this. Let's go to blue. So let's say I'm having a student has great lower body turn, but their hands in the same position as you. Their shoulders would be like this, because now all of a sudden that's going to lift this arm more out and away from that target line. The second reason is what you're doing is your shoulders are doing great. They're staying relative to that spine angle line, but there's not enough turn to pull them back here. Okay, so those are the two things I want you to watch, even at you at home with your own swings. Now, once you get to that middle point, right, this is where the middle point, so your hands ideally should be right on that lower plane line. Right, so now from here, they can work to the upper plane line in this avenue. So now they'd be more over here. So you take a look at there. You see how that avenue of the hands from this point does go in that angle. However, that angle now is too far this way because there was not a lot of turn to get you on that lower plane line sooner. because that's why you got to keep your hands on the lower plane line as best as you can to give you the fighting chance of being in your slots at the top of your swing. Because here you're in your slots if that's where you want to be. Here you're out of the slot. Now you've got to find a way to get in the slots. Remember the downswing. Andy here, I'm just tuned in, catching up. Okay, Andy, I went over a bunch of stuff before. Hopefully you're not going to be mad at me, but I think you got to go back to the swing. So if you can catch up after this, go back and watch a video. If you have any questions, just email me or send me some other videos. But we're just talking about compensatory motions. So the whole golf swing, the fastest swing, think about it as 0.9 seconds. The slowest golf swing, thinking about it, 1.3 seconds. Now the amount of backswing to downswing, it's about 2 to 1. So if you take your backswing in 0.9 seconds, you've got 0.3 seconds now to hit that golf ball. So whatever positions you put yourself in, now you've got a third of the time to move back and try and hit the golf ball. So this is probably why you struggled with this swing. I do see you attempting to get back down to that into the slots. But now, even if you got in the slots, you're steep and it's game over, right? You do a good job here, but it's game over. Its hands are too late. You're going to come over with an open club face. Path is going to go left when it's steep, and you can see how low your hands are. So you're always going to fight a left path. And when you fight a left path, you're going to have to compensate it somehow with your club face. And if you leave it down to your hands, unless you hit thousands of balls a week, your compensatory motions are not going to be as timing proficient as they would be. So this is where you get that leak rights, and you said in your email that you also leak some lefts every now and then. But good thing about this swing, again, is the ability to stay in your posture as you strike the golf ball. We know you get the increase of tilt. We've measured your tilt before, so if you want to go back and look at that number again, you measure your tilt. We know that you stay in your brace line. Look at that. You're doing a good job. You actually increase your brace line, which is awesome. It's very hard to do that. A lot of amateurs don't increase the brace line. So here, this is very athletic, Andy. This is a really good swing. And you strike the golf ball, and you can see your hands are trying to catch up and help you. And even here, you return to a nice natural position. There's less crunching. You know, when you crunch, now you're dealing with unnecessary forces that are kind of crunching into the middle instead of being expressed outward and relieving tension. So if I were you, Andy, go back to the swing. But just make that change. Make the change of your turn of your hips to allow those hands to meet that lower plane line sooner, and then you can reach up to the stars. Reach up for the sky, and hopefully that'll get you going on the right track. I have run out of videos. So unless you guys got any questions, and you got any questions, Doc, Eric, anybody got any questions about their own golf swing? Well, you got me here. And I know, Doc, you had better have some questions. You better be out there playing golf instead of feeling sorry for yourself. Andy, hopefully that all makes sense to you. I'll give you guys a couple seconds. If you have any questions, let me know. If not, I think I'm going to call it a night. Only got 3 submissions this week. Eric, send me a submission. Doc, I'm still waiting for yours, man. You got to, send me something. Even if it's you in flip-flops in your garage and with a broomstick, just send me something. I want to see that swing. Oh, and by the way, if you're still here, thanks, Eric. I appreciate it, man. Yeah, send me your swing too. I want to see it. I want to help you out. We're trying to do a 4,000 subscriber giveaway. I want to try and get some golf involved. So if anybody's in SoCal or at least near SoCal, they want to get out and play some golf, let me know. I'm probably going to arrange a couple of foursomes, have you guys come on out. We'll have some fun, play a little skins game. Thanks, Eric. I appreciate it. I want to see it. I want to help you out. You've been a great supporter. Same with Doc. I got to get you out of your flip-flops, Doc. You still get your spot over there, Doc. I don't know if you can see that. We need an Eric spot now. We got to find a place for Eric. But other than that, no questions coming up. So I will take it easy. I'm going to get some tacos, some homemade tacos that I can smell right now, which is probably why I went quicker than normal. But hope that helps you guys. I'll see you next week. Send me your videos. Set some dates. I'll fly for golf. Okay, yeah. I will set some dates. The closer we get to the 4K, I'm going to set some dates, and we'll arrange some golf. I'm going to try and time it so we can do it in the desert, because the desert in the Coachella Valley, we can get some really good golf courses and beat the heat. So we won't do it in August because I don't want you guys getting heat stroke, 120 degrees, but we'll do it around when the heat just starts so we can get that stuff. But other than that, I'll see you guys next week. Try and do some more videos for you. But thanks for the support. I appreciate it. If you know anybody that likes this, do like this video, share, subscribe, and I will see you guys next week. Thanks again for your support. Take it easy. Fairways and greens.